Hey everybody, what's up? Hello LinkedIn, YouTube, Stefan, you there with me?
I'm here, brother. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
Wonderful. We're live here as well. We're looking good. Mami, ¿qué pasa? Sophie, we got a gang, we got a crew. What's up, Dylan? Love it, man. We'll give it about 2 more minutes. Did you learn from the yogi? My cat's Instagram has joined. That makes no sense. Yeah, we're stash brothers. We're getting some compliments on the stashes.
Oh, there we go. Yes. This is a new thing for me. This is post-COVID.
I know. And entering into your practice, this passion, it's kind of commonplace to be able to grow out all the hair possible. It's super okay.
Yeah. You know what funny thing is, like many years ago, I used to have long hair, like a really long hair.
Like longer than mine?
Yeah, like past my shoulders, long hair.
I did literally like, yeah, shoulders. And because out of high school or in high school, if we had hair that was below our collar, we would literally receive notice and have to, and if we didn't cut it by Thursday, there was literally a classroom outfitted for those who had long hair, and we were forced to literally cut it. Like a disciplinarian would literally cut our hair. So whenever we left our high school, everybody grew it out, and it still happened. Yeah.
Teenage rebellion.
I know. All right, we got lovely people here. What's up, everybody? What's up, Bobby? All right, man, why don't we kick it? We're at 12:04. I want to be cognizant of everybody's time during lunch today. And so thank you so much to all who have joined us today, who have joined us in this experience, in this 330 that I've been doing over the course of, this is the 4th week of content, I believe. So it's been quite a good amount of time in this 330 series. So for those that are fairly new, what I'm doing here is I'm sharing health habits each day for 30 weekdays. And along the way, raising money for Black Lives Matter by running 300 miles over the course of 30 days straight. So to this, we are finalizing this. I know that I finished this, the running portion on Tuesday, which I cannot wait for. I'm super excited. It's been a long road, literally. And these are the health habits that I'm sharing each day on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, a means for keeping me in check and really sustaining me for this challenge. So if you've enjoyed the videos each day and aligned to this cause, invite you to donate. No amount is too little. It's in every video I make in the notes. It's in my link in the bio for those that are following here on Instagram. And if you've benefited from this, feel free to share it. We have until Tuesday to see how much we can raise, so I'm excited for that. And just a quick expression of gratitude to so many of you who have followed, have shared your thoughts, and portrayed those to me personally as well. As for today, Steph, I need this conversation. You know, we were just talking about the idea of sleep and your whoop, and I personally definitely struggle with sleep, with stillness, and with consciously creating associated space to really practice that mindfulness. And I think that's been obviously really important this week and for so many of our LinkedIn colleagues. Um, and and so to this, for those of you that are new to Stefan After Ego, I reached out to my man who works at LinkedIn by day, but has really started his own practice called After Ego as well. So Steph, thanks so much for joining us today.
So good to be here, brother.
Yeah. Why don't we start in just sharing like maybe the most boring part of this conversation, or maybe not, but just like what your associated paid employment is. And I would love to understand like how you're inspired by your actual work as we have that as a conduit into what you're doing with your passion project.
Sure, yeah. So in my day-to-day work, I lead a team of customer success professionals across 3 regions in North America, Latin America, and Europe, within our global accounts business here at LinkedIn. I've been in this space for the past, I think it's coming up to 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and hopped around the globe. So prior to coming to New York 3 years ago, I spent 3 years in Ireland as well with LinkedIn. And the role, I mean, kind of combines many of my professional passions, which is multicultural team of within a business that I strongly um, believe in,
Mm-hmm.
which is mission and education. And I don't know, it's been incredible to grow professionally in the last 6 years at LinkedIn. What I kind of noticed, especially over the last couple of years, especially this year, is wellness is entering a workplace at a pace like we've never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where some of my personal passions are also playing a part in the way I lead a team, in the way that I help others.
Yeah, I think we're lucky in that we work in tech, right? So I think we're at the forefront of it all from a business perspective. But I think there are still probably a lot of individuals that work in more latent industries that haven't experienced that sense of wellness being pushed into their day-to-day lives from a work perspective. To that, we've entered into this like weird COVID experience, and I think one thing that I've found so much value from your practice is you've had this investment in others from your day-to-day practice at work in terms of managing groups of people. But this COVID experience has really allowed you to invest really your passions and sharing that with others from a wellness perspective. So we'd love to understand how After Ego started in the first place. And how long have you really conceptualized the idea to begin with?
I think it's been something that's been brewing for quite a while. I think I started taking first steps towards from an ideation phase to actually executing when I took my teacher's training 2 years ago, yoga teacher's training, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it has been a continuous education, either taking a meditation certification training, recently breathwork. So I kind of feel for the last 2 years, I've been on this road of equipping myself with tools to be able to share these practices responsibly with others. And then over the last, I think 5-6 months, all of that was accelerated because I didn't see myself apart from teaching once or twice a week in a small studio in the Upper West Side, teaching a yoga class. I didn't see myself doing anything more than that. And then COVID really accelerated all of that and brought us all together because of the adversity and hardship we were experiencing, but also virtually brought us together, right? And that's when After Ego took its kind of form that we are seeing today. The way I describe what I'm trying to do with After Ego, it's really trying to join ancestral wisdom on one side, so taking practices like yoga, meditation, similar spiritual practices, and marrying that with modern science to a degree that it's possible, right? Not saying that one approach is better than the other, and trying to find that holistic approach. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's what I'm trying to do with After Ego. Really, how all this started was many years. Like my dog just barged into into the room, so she might be joining the live stream.
He always does.
So really how the inception of all of this was probably when I was 11, 12 years old. My grandpa taught me my first yoga class, which back then was just us messing around on a beach in Montenegro. He was showing us a couple of poses, and we kind of found it interesting to begin with. And then it has been a practice that's been with me for my whole life. I never really looked at it more than a physical practice, right? It was something that I will do on top of going to the gym or doing CrossFit or lifting weights. And then slowly, I feel, as the maturing process has kicked off and I got closer to my 30s, it's actually, I got interested in more of a spiritual elements of the practice, right? So that's how that's kind of the development path, if you will, and how I got to this point where now I do yoga daily. I try to meditate daily, and I try to share this with as many people that want to hear about it.
I think one of the beautiful aspects of your practice, and it's been a long journey for sure. It sounds like it wasn't just something that was fabricated out of thin air of maybe the stressors of COVID, but something that you have practiced since an early age. And what I try to do in terms of the expression of the things that I'm learning with the practices that I have been able to enjoy and partake in that you've so graciously have taught is I think you do a wonderful job of really understanding the associated science and the background and the history behind what you're teaching. And I think there's beauty in that. You know, I don't think any of us are really true experts in so many things, even those things that we're sharing and expressing, besides those who are like, you know, leading yoga nidra and have, you know, conceptualized these different things. But to understand the science and to portray some of that for the reasoning of why we do what we do, I think is critical. Let's shift over to breathwork. That's what we're talking about today. And in the practices that you've shared, everything I think from a yoga perspective and meditation really is centered around the breath. And in your practices, for those that haven't been able or really been benefited from joining one of Stefan's practices, he was, for a period of time, I think, doing a yoga class every single day virtually. And I'm sure you're still doing some of them, but largely now focusing on breathwork and breathwork practices virtually. How do you see the two really intersected and that shift from your focus now on teaching that sense of breathwork?
Yeah, sure. So I think if you ever had an experience of a yoga class, you know, regardless in which part of the world, there is always that emphasis on breath, right? In a yoga class, to connect the breath with the poses you're going through. And it's essential part of the practice. But there is even, you know, when we look beyond the physical aspect of yoga, and this is something we touched upon, I think yesterday as we were prepping for this call, actually breath work is one of the key ingredients of a yogic path, right? So I have actually prepared a couple of books here just to expose people to some of them. So this is one of the ancient yogic texts called Yoga Sutras, wrote probably, I think, 1500 years ago. And in this text, it's considered to be one of the kind of the wisdom texts in yogic traditions. And there it's described the 8 limb path of yoga, right? Where there are ways how you should morally conduct yourself. There are ways how to build healthy habits. There is the physical practice of yoga. And then there is one aspect called pranayama, which is essentially the breath work, right? These ancient yogis, without having access to all the tools we have today, they figured out the breath is the link in between some of these systems. And it's almost kind of a little shortcut, if you will, you know. And when I talk about breath in my own practice and through After Ego, I often say breath is the remote control of the mind, right? And I feel like that sentence resonates really well with people. And we've all experienced this either in a calming way, right? So when we slow down our breathing, we notice how all of a sudden we are calmer, or the opposite, when there is a stressful situation and then our breathing becomes more shallow and more upper chest, right? And we sigh out as getting a little bit of a sense of relief. We probably experienced that as well. So these yogis were so in tune with their bodies, they noticed, okay, there's something here. So they developed a whole system of exercises in yogic traditions. And it goes beyond yoga. It's, I think, all of these Eastern traditions, they have some sort of breath work. Even if you look at some of the Western religious teachings, right, breath is often associated with life, right? It's an important component of who we are, right? And it's fascinating how much we can achieve just through breath. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. And one of the reasons I think that it's the one of the, I think, if not only process in our body that can be fully autonomous or fully manually by us fully manually controlling it, right? So you can completely forget about your breathing and it will happen. It will naturally occur because your autonomous nervous system takes over, or you can override that, right? Which is what I think it makes it such a interesting ingredient to play with.
Wonderful. So what I want to move into a little bit outside of some of the science, just being conscious of time for everybody, is in terms of thinking about this as a habitual practice, introducing this into your life on a daily basis. I'm curious, and I'm sure people are curious with how you have actually made this a habit or put into practice. Do you focus your breath kind of all day in everything you do? Is it unconscious for you at this point? Or do you have a conscious practice where you practice breath work in the morning or at nighttime?
So, yes, I do have dedicated times. I try to practice 20 minutes in the morning and roughly 20 minutes before going to bed. And sometimes this doesn't really need to be only breath work, or it doesn't need to be. I want to say it's not the only thing that's happening. I could be doing my yoga practice and doing the breath work alongside it, in which case I would probably do more static poses. I wouldn't be moving as much, right? So I had these dedicated time slots, but throughout the day, I try to do it as much as possible. Yesterday, we talked about my dentist appointment, right? And how I noticed. So yesterday at 9 a.m., I was at dentist, and I just noticed that my abdominal breathing kicked in on its own, right? I was there lying in a chair, listening to a podcast. And, I don't really have any anxiety or fear of dentists, but regardless, it's not the most pleasant experience. And I just noticed how I was unconsciously belly breathing and calming myself down in that way. So at one point, it becomes really something that's just part of how you normally breathe, right? I want to say the way that when I want to introduce a new habit, the way it works for me is I very much subscribe to Atomic Habits approach, right? And one of the first steps in the Atomic Habits approach is make it obvious, right? So if you were to see my workstation here, I had my meditation pillow next to me, my yoga mat, the yoga wheel, a couple different gadgets. And it's not about the gadgets, but these are just reminders for me. When I'm not in a meeting and before I go outside of the room, I do a little bit of stretching or I sit down in meditation, and that's what works for me, making it really obvious. Another one is making it attractive, right? So before you kick off a new habit, you want to, let's say it's meditation or breathing, right? You want to create that little corner of your apartment that looks really comfortable. You want to go and sit there and spend time, regardless whether you're doing meditation or not. So it's inviting, right? So that sometimes means just I switch on my essential oil diffuser, and that gets me into that state. Sense of smell is a really strong stimulus for a new habit to be formed. And then third one is make it easy. I've measured this myself. It takes, and there's many studies that show the amount of time needed for you to really kick off that relaxation response is anywhere between 1 to 3 to 4 or 5 minutes, right? So it's very short amount of time you need to invest in order to reap the benefits, right? So starting off with 1 minute, having that designated area that's obvious that you're going to see daily, it's a great way to start.
Yeah, so it sounds like ensuring that you're creating the associated space, but not just the space, making sure that it's not interruptive to the given experience of your day, but something that's extremely inviting that you're incentivized to do because of partially the space you're creating and the associated benefit. So hopefully the majority of us that are on this live session right now, or those that will join later after the recording, find themselves in a bit of a comfortable space and setting within their room, within their apartment, within their home. I feel at peace. The door is closed. I'm actually in the bedroom. I have my favorite candle lit next to me. I have some of my chaga tea. And so why don't we dive into that actual experience, if you don't mind being our shaman and ushering us into a bit of breath work. Explain to us kind of what this practice will be. I think it'll be around 10 minutes, no? You mentioned earlier.
Sure. Yeah, I think we'll be roughly around 10 minutes. And the practice we'll go today is based on the approach called the oxygen advantage from a Irish guy that I had the privilege to meet actually at a wellness session at LinkedIn when I was in Ireland, called Patrick McKeown. He's getting a lot of recognition these days for the work. He's been teaching breath work for the past 20 years or so. And the book is can be very technical. But it's science-based approach to breathing, right? And essentially there are two pillars in his approach. One is functional breathing patterns. So making sure that at rest, we're breathing through our nose, our breathing is controlled and stable. And then there is a second pillar, which is preparing you for athletic performance, or if you are going to go on high altitude, preparing you for those kind of adventures. So the second pillar is high altitude simulation training, and there are exercises that train you for something like that. So today we're not going to be focusing on the second pillar. Yes, we'll focus. Well, essentially, those exercises are more in the breath holding kind of space of breath work, where the first pillar, functional breathing patterns, it's really stimulating that relaxation response, right? So we will be breathing in and out through our nose, and that's the first step. And just to get us kind of into this scientific curiosity mindset with our breath, I always like to have a couple of experiments for everyone. So the first experiment I want us to do is check how we are breathing through our nose. A lot of people, when you say you should be breathing through your nose, which is actually, this is our main organ of breathing, right? So we should be breathing through our nose. It's only humans and dogs are the only animals that breathe through their mouth, and dogs do it because they thermoregulate in this way, right? And well, that's me as well. So So we should be using our nose to breathe. And oftentimes people say, well, it's not easy for me to breathe through my nose. It might be experiencing stuckness and so on. So let's just start off and check how is that working. And we're going to just close off our right nostril and breathe through our left. Just notice what's it like to breathe through the left. And then switch sides, close our left one and breathe through the right. And you can go ahead and release that. Did you notice any difference between the left and right? Were they pretty equal? Very equal? Okay. Yes, that's good. It means, so there's in yoga, there's this whole science where they kind of almost advise the types of activities you should be doing based on which one of your nostrils is more closed, right? And they're circulating. This is changing throughout the day. They're saying that there's a 90-minute cycle between one nostril being more closed and then it changes to the other, right? And in yoga, they connect, left and right side with different qualities. So that's how they kind of had this whole system developed based on something like that. For those of our friends maybe that experienced a little bit more stuckness, we're going to do a very, very easy exercise to open up nasal pathways. And this is something you can do before you go for a workout, before you go for a run, if you want to be able to breathe through your nose more. So essentially, we're just going to take a small breath in, a small breath out through the nose. Go ahead and pinch and close your nose. And release. And continue breathing in and out through your nose. We'll do this 2 more times. And you might already start to feel a little bit of a difference as it's kind of a little bit easier to breathe. Some of our friends might be experiencing this. And what's happening, there is a very important breathing gas that pulls inside of our nasal cavities called nitric oxide. And it's a really interesting gas that has been discovered really, I think, in the 1990s, so not so long time ago. And what it does, once you bring it into your system, it actually expands your blood vessels. So it's a vasodilator and allows more of that oxygen to reach all the parts of the body. And it only happens if you breathe through our nose. There isn't concentration of nitric oxide, NO, inside of our throat or mouth. So let's do the second time. Inhale through our nose, exhale through our nose. Go ahead and pinch and close our nose. And release. We're just holding our breath for 5 seconds, very gentle, very easy. You can even add, if you're standing or if you would like to add a couple of steps in between, that's also possible. But I feel this is effective even without adding any exercise. Now let's do one last time. Inhale through our nose, exhale through our nose. Go ahead and pinch and close your nose. And release. Perfect. So let's move into our first part of our practice. I invite you all to put one hand on your belly, just above the navel, and one hand on your chest. And by the way, this is also very much according to Atomic Habits, right? So this is giving you that feedback, right? So if you are just forming a habit, using something to give you that biofeedback, like your hands, it's so easy and so satisfying. Okay. So in the beginning, just notice the breath coming in through your nose and out through your nose, breathing normally without modifying your breathing. Maybe notice where the breath occurs more. Is it more in the abdominal region? or is it more in the upper chest? Which hand is moving further away? Just getting really, really curious now, getting into that scientific mindset. What is going on here? It said that we take 25,000 breaths of air on a daily basis. So getting in touch with a small portion of them, just seeing what is it that we do so much on a daily basis. Okay, and then from here, we're going to explore breathing light, which is going to teach us to pay attention to biochemistry of breathing. And essentially, the goal is to feel a little bit of air hunger. With each inhalation and exhalation, you're going to slow down your breathing. So much so that you're feeling there is a light air hunger. Your breathing should be light. You shouldn't be able to hear yourself breathe. One of my teachers used this illustration. He says, breathe so light that the fine hair inside of your nose are not moving. You're so gentle with your breath. If you are more on scientific side of things and you want to know exactly how much should I slow down my breathing, by roughly 30%. We're going to add counting to our breathing. So with the next inhale, we're going to count on the count of 4, 2, 3, 4, pause, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, exhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, inhale, exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Continue at your own pace. You can continue to mentally count. Again, you will know you're doing it right if there's that feeling that you would like to take a bigger breath. Take a very slow breath in, almost as if you're not breathing. And as you breathe out, bring a feeling of relaxation to the body, allowing the air to leave the body effortlessly. So do this for a little less than 1 minute. And in this last portion, I invite you to notice what's happening with your arms and legs, especially with your feet and your hands. Do you notice any change in temperature there? And the second thing I want you to notice is what's happening inside of your mouth. Is there maybe more saliva? Is the mouth getting watery? What's going on there? Okay. And you can go ahead and release your hands from your chest and your belly. So what you might have noticed is, and actually, Guy, did you notice any difference with your hands, your feet, what's happening?
Yeah, I felt definitely an associated sense of warmth for sure. And I don't know if it was similar in how definitely the mouth had more saliva in it, 100%. Hands were warm and felt not like crazy clamminess, but just warmth on the heart and on the belly. And I'm looking at my heart rate, and it probably fell 20 beats per minute over that course of time, down to like 40, which is insane.
And this, I'm deliberately calling out these things like warmth in the hands and feet and what's happening inside of the mouth, because these are your little kind of indicators that relaxation response is occurring, that parasympathetic system is getting activated, because that's our rest, digest, and part of our autonomic nervous system. And these are little signs telling you, hey, you are in that place where now it's natural to relax, or it's natural to go and have a meal, right? Usually they say, investing 1 minute of this practice, it lasts for about 5 minutes, even if you don't do anything. Like if you go back to your normal breathing for 5 minutes, you're still going to be in that relaxation response.
So do you find yourself in a stressful moments, whether it's through work or something, that you're just practicing that for maybe 2-3 minutes where you're seeing exponential gain over time with whatever you have to do next?
Yes, I love doing this before I have to maybe give a talk or present something, or anything that involves some sort of performance. I love breathing in this way, but I also, to get me prepared and energized, because even though this is really calming, I think that's the basis. And then if you want to be in that state of mind when you're performing, I like to do maybe 5 or 10 minutes of energizing yoga practice, a physical posture based yoga practice. Some people will do breath holds, right? More sympathetic activating exercises, which, I think and I want to kind of mention this and stress this. Stress is not a bad thing. Again, a poetic saying about stress is the spice of life. Okay. So without it, it's part of human condition. It's a part of human experience, but chronic stress leads to chronic inflammation, which leads to illness, decay, and so on, right? So we need to be able to balance things out. That's why parasympathetic activation to very gentle breathing like this will bring you to balance. But there are also people for whom this might not work. Some people are naturally calm, right? Or naturally maybe on that other side of the bell curve. And for them, they might need a little bit more sympathetic activation. I don't find that so much in our Western society, especially in New York. But I just wanted to mention that as well, so people don't have this idea that stress is the enemy, right?
Yeah, I don't think anybody has that benefit in New York necessarily. But your point on stress being beneficial is so true. Like, if we get hurt or something occurs, stress or inflammation is a stimulus to ensure that the body is responding to take care of whatever it needs to take care of. But it's an issue when it just occurs chronically over time, and that's where I think this really plays a part. And I think your point on that this is something that you can do for literally a minute. So it's not something that's extensive where you have to create associated 30 minutes and park something else in your day necessarily, but just take a moment and find some stillness and practice can be so beneficial. To this point, for those after this practice, we kind of come on to the close of this. Is there anywhere that you would prescribe people to go to have like any sort of guidance on this? You mentioned the Oxygen Advantage. I put that in the notes, at least on YouTube. But anything else that people can find easily, whether it's something on YouTube or otherwise, that you would say is an easy guided exercise?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, they can come to my YouTube channel. It's not really content rich yet, but it has a couple of guided meditations there. I actually took a little bit of time off from social media over the past 2 weeks. And with us practicing together today, I feel like I'm ready to go back. So I'll be more active again in terms of some of the breathwork exercises. So they can follow me on Instagram, as well as they can check out afterego.com. So I'll be publishing more articles and blogs. You know what? There is one book that I just skimmed through, which has gained a lot of positive press. Is James Nestor's book, Breath, the Lost Art of Breathing. And he is an investigative journalist who wrote about free divers in his previous book, and now went into breathwork as a kind of natural consequence of that book. I just skimmed through it. He mentions Patrick McKeown and his Oxygen Advantage there. He mentions Wim Hof. He mentions pranayama exercises from yoga. So exactly that's the name, James Nestor. So it seemed like he's done a wonderful job in really bringing all of that knowledge. There has been a New York Times article on him as well.
Yeah, you talk about free divers and the connection between needing good practice with breath to ensure lack of breath over time. Is the website you were referencing, is it afterego.com, as simple as that?
It's actually after-ego.com. By the time I created the website, someone already beat me to it.
Perfect. So after-ego.com, and I believe your Instagram is, I mean, we have it here, right? It's after_ego.
Mm-hmm.
So just, you can look back onto this YouTube channel, into this Instagram channel, and find it as well. I put that in the notes on YouTube. I actually can't comment on LinkedIn for those that are following on LinkedIn. I know there's quite a few. Apologies for the echo on my end, but I think we were able to fix it midway through, especially for the practice. And I'll put in the notes on some of the references that Stefan just mentioned. So for those that are following, follow Stefan. He's going to be giving us just gems of value moving forward after this. I'm glad to hear that this is a bit of a recatalyst, if you will, to coming back to practice, because I think the world definitely needs you, and the way that you are able to share your wealth of knowledge is so valuable. So thank you so much, my brother, especially on Friday. We definitely needed it.
Great appreciation for all the work you're doing as well with your project. I'm so proud of you, and a lot of people are benefiting from what you're doing. So thank you as well.
Wonderful. Lots of love here on this video. We've been talking about romance. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. That's it. This is recorded, so you can come back to it, the practice especially. Again, link to donate within the associated notes. We have until Tuesday, and the health habits will continue for, I think, about two more weeks. We're diving into physical health next week, and then spiritual health the following. Thank you all so much for joining. So appreciate it. Namaste, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.